Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this TWiML Fest session, where we learn to apply AI for the challenging topic of modern slavery. This is the first out of the 3 sessions where we tackle the practical problem with NLP. So this session here welcomes both developers and non-developer audiences to learn how advanced technologies can be used for solving global challenges. The next Wednesday session at the same time will be a Q&A open discussion where all the hackathon participants can ask their specific questions. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll have a closing session for the hackathon where we will announce the winners of the hackathon, give out some sweet prizes, and generally learn about how to take this research forward, how to join the community, and any types of learnings that we have made through the hackathon. So today's agenda, let me see if I can swap slides. Okay, so firstly, we're gonna take a look at what is modern slavery and what is not. How is it regulated in different countries and governments? How do companies address this issue in their supply chains? And what is then the opportunity that we can leverage machine learning for? And finally, we will learn how you can contribute to the modern slavery research using machine learning and NLP. Let me introduce then today's speakers. It's me, Edgar, and Kai. I am a data scientist at the Future Society. I'm also a founder of an analytics, engineering, and data science consultancy, Brave Tech. Kai, maybe you want to say a couple of words about yourself?
Yes. So I am a machine learning engineer, not by training, but that's mostly the case for all machine learning engineers, and co-founder of Fenton. My experience is mostly in industrial applications, so I'm not an NLP expert. Edgar is really the expert for modern slavery and also NLP. You can consider me as a helping hand for this session. I will help answering questions on the chat and Slack, and if there are any problems with the competition, I will show how you can make submissions and how we will evaluate the hackathon later on after Edgar presented. And yeah, so that's about me.
Nice, thanks, Kai. So before we get to the meat of this presentation, I'll say a few words about the Future Society. The Future Society is a leading independent non-profit think and do tank focused on ethics and governance of AI. So it does policy research, advisory services, providing education and leadership development programs for AI and digital transformation, helping governments with digital and AI strategies. It was founded in 2014, and our partners include renowned international organizations such as UNESCO, OECD, the World Bank, and lots of other organizations. So, okay. Now, the challenge. What is modern slavery? Modern slavery, as commonly defined in research, is the severe exploitation of other people for personal or commercial gain. In research, it's mostly distinguished into two categories, that is forced labor and forced marriage. Forced labor is forcing a person to work for little or no remuneration, often under threats, violence, and false promises. In those situations, people have usually no agency over their working conditions. And it's important to distinguish that there is a clear difference between forced labor and working below standard working conditions, as forced labor often involves limiting the freedom of movement and withholding the workers' wages or identity documents. And forced labor can be state-imposed forced labor, such as we know from North Korea. It can be in private, and it can also involve forced sexual exploitation of adults and commercial sexual exploitation of children. So let's move. Oh, what's happening here? Okay. A little bit about the numbers. The Global Slavery Index is currently the most vigorous study of modern slavery available today. It measures the prevalence of the problem country by country, the risk factors that make people vulnerable to ending up in such a situation, and also then each nation's response to this crime. There are then estimates that there are about 40.3 million people in some form of modern slavery. And of that, then almost 25 million are in forced labor, which is the part that we are going to focus more on during this presentation and this project in general. Yeah, it's a multi-billion-dollar transnational criminal business, and a lot of the victims are children. And let's look at some more specific cases. So there are a lot of stories reported in media of companies being investigated on this, and the old truth often holds that if something is too cheap to be true, then it probably isn't, and there is reason to doubt the legitimate supply chain. So from seafood from Thailand and electronics from Malaysia and China to textiles from India and wood from Brazil, it exists in a lot of different industries. So it's known in industries such as manufacturing, hospitality, construction, farming, mining, fishing, etc. So a very prevalent problem in all corners of the planet. So what are then governments doing about this? The UK was the first to make a national modern slavery legislation, so called the Modern Slavery Act 2015. And it was made in response to the shocking statistics that were published. Companies making over 36 million pounds must produce a modern slavery statement. So that is the big step forward. And well, okay. So yeah, they must produce the statements legislated by the law, and these statements need to outline the steps that the companies are taking to eradicate modern slavery from their direct operations and their supply chain. Effectively, however, there are few legal requirements for these statements. So as long as it's signed by the board and it titles modern slavery statement, it's technically a passing criteria. However, then the advocacy continues. Governments are coming up with increasingly specific requirements, and many other countries such as California, Australia, the EU have similar legislation with more countries expected to follow in the coming years. As increasing number of countries are legislating against modern slavery, the number of statements published each year will only increase. So currently we have an estimated 12 to 17,000 modern slavery statements that are published each year by UK businesses. And yeah, as said, lots of them will follow. Now, this then poses a challenge that if lots of these statements are published, they can be in any format, including PDF and HTML, some scanned, some digital. How can all of these be assessed? So there are different ways to assess a modern slavery statement. And for example, we can look at whether the statement is signed, whether the statement describes the supply chain and ownership disclosure. So does the company actually list who are its subcontractors, at what conditions, what are the contract terms, where are these contractors based? All of these aspects, if the companies are supposed to then list them in their statement. We can look at whether the statement is actually approved by the board of directors. Has the senior management seen this? For example, also since supply chains are multi-tiered, and there are lots of different participants in there, hundreds for the biggest companies, then there should be some type of a whistleblowing mechanism where if incidents are reported, then they can be anonymously identified, and therefore the management can take certain actions. Now, again, if the company has such a mechanism, they should be mentioning this in their statement. Additionally, does the company do any type of risk identification? So does it look at the industries where it's operating? Does it analyze the general working conditions, the labor law in the country that it operates in? All of these aspects, it would be expected them to list in the statements. Additionally, so for example, providing also training, providing training to employees, to supply chain workers. That's a key issue, and that is also then something we're going to address later as part of our hackathon. At present, the most comprehensive study to date, conducted by Wikirate and the Walk Free Initiative, sampled no more than 1,300 statements, while most other studies have not exceeded a sample size of about 150 statements. This shortfall is due to mostly lack of resources, as the analysis, reading, analyzing, synthesizing, benchmarking, verifying the modern slavery statements is super labor intensive and very time consuming, obviously. The ability to assess the impact of this legislation, to unlock the content of the statements and to understand the steps businesses are taking against modern slavery is really hampered by this labor intensive nature of this analysis. So there is obviously a need for a type of scalable solution. Manual assessment does not take us very far on this. And this has hampered attempts to assess the real level of compliance and understand the impact of this legislation. Does the legislation actually make companies to do anything? And what we really need is a scalable method for assessing these statements in order to boost compliance, drive effective intervention, to save victims, and eventually eradicate all forms of modern slavery from company supply chains. So let's talk about what we can do about this. The Future Society launched Project AIMS, standing for Artificial Intelligence Against Modern Slavery. And the goal is to use the latest data science and machine learning techniques with a particular focus on natural language processing and computational linguistics to assess and improve overall understanding of the quality of the reports produced by businesses under the UK and Australia Modern Slavery Acts. Those two countries, because they have at present most advanced modern slavery related legislation and requirements in those terms. The goal is to create a tool that would be clearly documented, open sourced, and so to boost further research in academia and advocacy groups on this in this area. So as I said, this is an open source research. Everyone's contributions are welcomed. We have published the text corpus in the GitHub, and everyone can go and visit and ask for the credentials. They will be provided at first possible instance. We have been working already together with the TWiML NLP embeddings group, and lots of their analysis and research is already published on the GitHub. The feedback that multiple members of the group have provided has been instrumental in improving the corpus and driving further research ideas. So you can go and check out what people have already done on this. Now, let's get to the hackathon. We have put together a mini Kaggle competition lasting from between October 14 to October 28. The goal is to then take a novel text corpus, 981 modern slavery statements with expert reviewed labels, and the task, putting in machine learning terms, is very straightforward. The task is to predict whether a given statement discusses the provision of modern slavery training to company employees. Yeah, there are statements that do that, statements that don't, and we need to create a classifier and explain the classifier results. And the competition will be opened right after this call. And you can then go to this link and download the data, submit your own algorithm, definitely join our Slack channel, and then you can stay up to date with all the changes, as well as asking relevant questions. There will be prizes. So first place will receive $250 credit at one of the big cloud providers, or they can use it for buying TWiML swag. But most importantly, this is a chance to solve a real world challenge with natural language processing, a chance to build your portfolio, contribute to research, use technology for something effective. The submission deadline is 28th of October. I'll let Kai take over to show you how how the competition environment looks in more detail.
Yes, so I'll go a little bit into detail on this competition. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so share. Can you see my screen with the browser?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the Kaggle competition. I suppose most of you know Kaggle, the competition platform. If not, just go to kaggle.com and sign up for an account. Under the link, you will find this this competition. It's not, I would say, real Kaggle competition. It's called the classroom competition, I think, Edgar, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's a classroom competition, but it looks like a normal Kaggle competition, and it basically works the same. You can see the data, download the data, train your model, and then submit your results, and it's getting evaluated in the background, and there's also a leaderboard. And yeah, so let's start maybe with the data, I think. So under the data tab, when you are on the competition side, you will find this here and a little description. And let's start with the train data. So it has the ID for the ID of the statement. And then in the next column, this is the text for the statement. So this is really I think it's copied from their website or a PDF or something. And it's in the second column. And then you have the label. And this is the label that is manually annotated by someone who knows how to read this kind of statements and say if this training is provided by the company or not. And in the last column for the training data, there is also some additional information. I think this is, I'm sure this is not, you don't need this for training. The classifier you should build is a binary classifier, and it should just evaluate from the text if the training is provided or not. So 0 means training is not provided, and 1 means training is provided. Edgar, I think it's a combination of different labels, so there are different kinds of trainings, but for this competition, it's really is training provided or not, right?
That's right, exactly. Yeah. The last column is just for context.
Yeah, okay. And then this is how many rows? I think it's so it's 980 data points, and it's, I think, 330 now for the test set. So let's have a look at the test set. You will find the ID in the first column again, and then the text. And the label is, of course, missing. That's what you should predict with your model or with your, with your AI model. And I think there is really a question mark in this in this row, so you can just throw it away and fill it with your predictions. Okay, so let's go to the overview page again. The evaluation is done with binary cross entropy or log loss. So you have to provide probabilities, not class labels. Remember that. In the solution file, the CSV file you should submit, you have to put the ID in the first column, and in the second column, there has to be the probability your model predicted for the statement. Yeah, so that in the background, Kaggle can calculate the score for the submission, and then you will be put on the leaderboard. We decided for log loss because the goal for the future society is not to kind of classify the data. That's what I understood, Edgar. Not to say this is okay, this is not okay, but to have a scoring for the data in order to sort the data, pre-sort the data, and help the people who are really looking into this statements to find the ones that are most problematic. Yeah, so also there is the leaderboard is split into a public and a private leaderboard. It's evenly split. So half of the data is used for the evaluation of the public leaderboard, which you will see when you click on leaderboard. And so the private leaderboard is for the final evaluation of your model. So the private leaderboard counts for your place. Since this is really a small data set, please try to trust your own validation. It is really going to be hard to not overfit to the leaderboard because it's so few data points here. So you will by chance get better results when you try over and over again to submit your data, but you can easily overfit by chance to this public leaderboard. So trust your own validation. This is going to be crucial for this competition. And it's not. We will not do it as a strict Kaggle competition. You can understand it more as a hackathon, and we will use Kaggle to keep track of the positions. And also, since the test set is not that big, we know that it's probably pretty easy to cheat. So you could really, in a reasonable amount of time, just manually annotate the data. Please don't do that. I think you see that it's not really for the prizes here. It's really for the noble cause to help the future society with this problem. And also, I'm sure that it gives really bad karma to cheat at this competition. Yeah. All right. So I think Edgar already said something about the timeline and the prizes. And if you have any further questions, go to the Slack channel, ask them there. We'll be around to help. Edgar and I are both in Europe. So if you are in the US, then probably the time shift it's night for us when you ask the questions. So please give us the time to answer. Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions now, you can ask.
Yep. Thanks so much, Kai. Yeah. So exactly, Kaggle is simply used here for keeping track of people's submissions and data. You don't get official Kaggle points or status from this competition, but we can use it to score results. And the ultimate goal here is to really learn what is the pattern that exists in the data that we can use and that researchers can take further to make even more advanced algorithms and eventually get rid of the human let's say toiling work and very complex processes to really make this analysis more smooth. So
also maybe one more thing. If you participate, then you should be prepared to open source your approach. I don't know if open sourcing is necessary, but at least submit it to us in order that we can have a look at it, or to the future society so that they can use it in the end.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the competition is not live at the moment, but then we will push it live right after we close this session here. Or maybe I wonder, Kai, if you can actually do it right now. On the...
Right now, yes. Checklist launch now. Okay,
competition is live. We'll post the link to the Slack group. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Don't try to talk over each other.
So have you already fielded a solution for this? Is there a benchmark that we should be comparing our initial efforts to?
The benchmark is random guess.
Sorry, Kai?
I think the benchmark is a random guess.
That's right.
No, there's is there any model already? No.
I think at the moment, no. If we have time, then we might do it, but I'll let the first one to set the bar.
Nice.
If there are no more questions, the model can be written in any language. That's right. So far, so far all work has been in Python. So the examples that you can find in the existing GitHub are in Python. But feel free to use any tools that are your favorites.
And in terms of human languages, the documents are all in English or a variety of languages?
Documents are all in English. They contain then mostly UK statements, some Australian statements, some statements from California and the US.
Also, there's no restriction regarding the model or anything. You can use basically any approach. If you maybe find out machine learning is not the right thing to do this, even counting words. So it's really about finding the best solution, not the fanciest solution.
Somebody asked if you recommend this for those who might not be that familiar with NLP. I say it's the perfect opportunity for anyone who is still getting into NLP, dabbling around, to try out something new, because this data does not exist in any of the platforms. It's not released. It's the first time we're releasing this. So in NLP, the big industry criticism has often been that all the models are trained for all the data sets that are very popular, like squat data set and some classification data sets. So now there is something new out of context. So try out transformers, try out the simple methods, word vectors, everything goes here. But also, like, then for more seasoned deep learning specialists, I think there's something new to try out.
Mm-hmm. I did an interview recently. It won't be released for a little bit, but it's with an individual at S&P who applies NLP techniques to like financial statements, or rather transcripts of earnings calls, and uses that to kind of create, buy signals, essentially doing something that I imagine would apply here. Like they've essentially trained models to look at the complexity of the language that's used, to look at, triple negatives, to look at a lack of detail, that kind of thing, all of those being indications of a lack of transparency. I suspect you'd want to do similar things. And they said they get fairly far with rudimentary techniques. They've built on it over time, but I imagine, some of the basic stuff that you can apply out of the box with a toolkit like Bag of Words and TF-IDF and all that kind of stuff can, everyone can get on the leaderboard now.
That's right. In-house, we've run some like very basic experiments with rule-based systems, and that gets you quite far. So it'll be interesting to see whether, then the more fancy methods give any edge here.
Yeah, maybe I need to get in touch with that guy and see if he can help me.
Also, I think you can also share this with your network, and I don't think that we will put a point in time where you can't join whenever you see this or whenever someone tells you about this. And I think the more people are working on this, the better the results will be.
Yeah, and also the challenge doesn't end at 28th of October. 28th of October is when we give out the prizes, but any significant contributors will be invited to become official contributors and advisors to the project. And you can get more affiliated with the research groups and make some really impactful research for the long term.
If folks that are listening or that come across this and want to participate would like to join together in groups, is that something that is encouraged or acceptable?
Yeah, absolutely. We have enabled teams, so everyone can then either compete alone or form a team. Anything that drives authentic results forward goes here.
Cool. So if anyone is interested in joining a team, maybe chime in the Slack channel for this, which is TFest. What is it exactly?
Say no.
Everyone should be in there. TFest-modern_slavery_hackathon. Is anyone actually, let me here, I'm putting a link to the Slack channel in the Zoom chat. If anyone can't or hasn't already joined the Slack channel, please do so. Welcome, Amy.
Yeah, and also the email. I think most people received an email. There's also the links. The link to Slack is there. We'll post the competition link here now also. Is the competition open to everyone or just the Fest signups? The competition is open to everyone. Yeah.
Of course, TWiML Fest is free. Why wouldn't someone sign up?
Oh, for sure.
But yes, invite all of your friends.
All right. So if there are no more questions.
I think we can wrap up.
Yes.
Yeah, there was one question. Will the solution be open source? Yeah, so it's strongly encouraged to open source it. We are taking our work currently as open sourced. So that will be the useful way. In order to win prizes, the solution has to be reproducible. So we should be able to see the code and run it and make sure that it works.
Also, you should then maybe work with seeds so that we can really reproduce the, if it's very, very thin margin, then it's probably good that we can really recreate the result that gave you the leaderboard scoring. I don't know how they're doing that on the real Kaggle competitions.
Yeah, yeah. There's the Kaggle kernels for like some more serious questions. Yeah, so there's the question: can we use outside data sources and/or pre-trained models? So the algorithm that is being scored here and that participates, that should be trained on. You can use pre-trained models. You can use the popular massively pre-trained models. However, then for the purposes of this competition, use only the data that is provided as the trained data.
Just to follow up, maybe I'll do it here, speak and it's easier. Hi, this is Stefan. So thanks for organizing the hackathon. Sounds like a lot of fun. It will be a lot of fun. So we can use pre-trained models, but I cannot, if I find, let's say, another data set that might be suited for pre-training a custom model on unlabeled data, that would not be okay.
That's right, okay. Exactly. So, because there is, so this data is compiled by Wikirate through Wikirate experts. And yeah, so essentially this data exists, but then if simply using the straight Wikirate labels for participating here, then there's no benefit to the research. So using like general methods to and the most popular like big pre-trained models, that's definitely fine. But yeah, not like one-to-one matches from found for this challenge base.
All right, and maybe another question: this other text attribute that you have in the data, this context, or I forgot the name.
Yeah.
In the training data, as you mentioned, it just is there to provide context, so it probably should not be used as an input feature and could lead to data leakage or something, I assume. Or
that's
well,
right.
You could not. I mean, you could not use it because it's not in the test set, so you can't.
Right.
You can't predict on this with the test set. So
okay.
yeah, you would definitely create a leakage for your training and would get very good results in your own validation, but not not for the test set.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. So that context variable is really like as we can see on the screen. So for example, on row with ID 1, we can see like recruitment HR training provided, but it's not specified. So then that's false. The next row is saying that. So then the reviewers have found that the statement makes a mentioning, let's say, if you take a ID 2, that training is provided for procurement and purchasing departments, as well as HR departments, leadership, suppliers. So there's lots of different types of training provided, hence the label 1. And for example, then the next ones, so sometimes a company can say that, yes, we provide training, but then not specify to whom or what kind of training. So then it wouldn't qualify in that instance. I can also post some more information in the Slack group regarding how this label is defined and how it's been researched to help with the training process.
Yeah, so the Slack channel should really be the point of where we give out information if anything changes or something, or if you have any questions. So everyone who is participating, please make sure to join the Slack channel.
Yep. Okay, I think then let's wrap up here. And thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate your time, appreciate your efforts in solving this challenge. And then with some of you, we'll see you next week to see where you're at.
Awesome. Edgar and Kai, thanks so much for organizing this. Great job, and looking forward to seeing what everyone comes up with.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Sam.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.